Guys, welcome back to the channel, and we've got an epic showdown today. It's 4,000 points of Necrons. Me and Eugene are taking on James's Death Spectres and Ian's Grey Knights. We are fighting on Shrine World Borealis, and we're playing Emperor's Will with the Relic. It's going to be brutal. There's lots and lots of cover, but lots of lines of fire through the streets. Let's have a quick look at the armies and see what brutality is going to ensue. Right, so just running through the forces. Eugene is running a Decurion and I'm running a CAD and formation. We'll just go from left to right. We've got a unit of 20 warriors. We've got a unit of 20 warriors, 10 warriors for Eugene. We've got 10 immortals. More warriors here with a Ghost Arc. We've got a unit of 10 Blade Ones. We've got the Monolith. A Lord on Barge with a War Scythe. Eugene's put 10 Death Marks up here. We've got Tomb Blades, and we have the Nightbringer, and then more warriors and a barge here, and that almost rounds out Eugene's force. But he's got a Lord here with Hurricane and 10 Sword and Shield Guard. They are going to be brutal. Meanwhile, I've got the Destroyer Lord, who is my Warlord with Eternal Warrior and the Void Reaper. We've got a Canoptic Harvest, Annihilation Barge, and then 3 Tomb Blades at the side. In reserve, I have 10 Immortals. Right, James and Ian are running a CAD and a Nemesis Strike Force. James has got Laspred, we've got a Rhino with 5 guys and a Flamer. We've got the Strike Squad and, of course, the Rifle Dread there. We've got Ian's equivalent of the Devastator Squad. I don't remember the name, I want to say Purifiers. We have another squad in the Razorback, James's Vindicator, backed up by a Dread Knight. James has infiltrated the Scouts just behind the Relic, and we've got the Dreadnought there as well, the Venerable. We've got 5-man tax squad with a Heavy Bolter here, and we've also got the Devastator squad, 2 Grav, 2 Laz, and the Librarian. The Librarian's powers with Perfect Timing, Forewarning, and of course Prescience. We've got 5 Terminators in a Land Raider, followed by another Dread Knight. We've then got a Rhino with a Chaplain and 5 Tactical Marines with a Power Fist on the Sergeant and a Melter Gun. We've then got the Assault Marines on the flank with a Flamer and Plasma Pistol, and of course the other Dreadnought. In reserve, Ian has 3 units of Terminators with a Librarian attached to one of them as well. The Librarian will automatically arrive on turn 1 thanks to his Warlord trait. So as I said, it is Emperor's Will with the Relic, and the lads have deployed their objective right at the back here, so good luck to us getting to that with 2 Dread Knights flanking it. Meanwhile, ours is way down there behind the Destroyer Lord, and of course we've got the Relic there in the centre that we will be fighting over, and currently as it stands, it is the Imperial's first turn. Right, so we've done movement and psychic for the Imperial forces. All of Ian's reserves are on. These guys are all pushing forward here, looking to start and chew into this Necron flank, whilst in the centre, these guys are all pushing forward slightly. Ian's Warlord unit landing here. He also tried to drop a unit of Terminators and unfortunately scattered onto the statue, and he rolled a 1, so unfortunately they were destroyed. We've got the Purifiers up here and the Scouts there as well. The Dreadnought here got Sanctuary off. The Dread Knight here got Sanctuary off. Those guys unfortunately didn't. James managed to get Prescience off on these guys, and as you can see, this flank, the Land Raider, the Assault Marines, the Rhino have all pushed forward, and this Dread Knight is shunted, looking to start chewing away at those Necron warriors. I'm guessing the Heavy Incinerator is probably going to do some damage to them. So that was it. Very quick turn despite the sheer number of points on the board. Let's move on to shooting and see what damage is done to the Necrons. Right, the las cannons from that Predator coming in and cutting straight through one of the Tomb Blades on this flank. Fire came in from the Dreadnought down the alleyway there against the Wraiths, and no damage was done. The Catan took fire from the heavy side cannon from the Dreadnought, and unfortunately insta-killed 2 Scarab bases and did a wound to the Destroyer Lord. The snipers up on the rooftop up there even managed to inflict a couple of wounds on the Catan, but Eugene passing all of his saves. Meanwhile down here, fire came in from the Vindicator and the las cannons on the Razorback, and unfortunately a single hull point has been dealt to the Monolith, and it's now snap firing living metal. Unfortunately I've rolled a 1. Meanwhile over this side, the Dreadnought here managed to actually do quite a lot of damage, taking out a number of my Necron warriors. They passed the morale check, and only Eugene lost only a couple of warriors himself. So not too bad a round of shooting for the side of the Imperial. But let's move on to Necron's turn and start advancing. Right, so the end of the movement phase and everything is pushed forward. The Tomb Blades looking to hopefully get a couple of snapshots in up there. The Lich Star and the warriors are all marching forward, whilst the Canoptic Wraiths are going to look to take on the Dreadnought there. The Scarabs are looking to hopefully get the Vindicator or the Razorback, and the Lord on barge there. Take out that Vindicator. That pie plate template with the mass infantry that we've got needs to go down. The Destroyer Lord there, unfortunately, only moving these normal 6. Not going to be within range to do much this turn, but he should be able to do something pretty nasty in the next turn. These guys, unfortunately, we have ran them at the same time as moving, only moved 5 inches altogether, and all the warriors are marching forward. The Monolith pushed forward at 6 inches. It's going to get a couple of shots in, but not too many, unfortunately. It is snap firing thanks to that penetrating hit from the Vindicator earlier. Whilst at this side, all of these guys are going to be shooting down at this Dread Knight. Hopefully we can start to whittle down some of the forces, but we'll have to see what happens. I think though in our next turn, as long as the Monolith is alive, I'll be spewing those 10 Immortals out onto the objective. The Lord there may go for the Scouts, depending on where the Scarabs end up charging. Right, so shooting phase, the Lich Guard have ran forward. The Tomb Blades try to get an odd shot in on the Laspred, but the Rifle Dread has gone thanks to fire from the Ghost Ark and the Annihilation Barge. The Nightbringer decided to shoot in at Ian's Grey Knights that were there and got a single D shot, and Eugene rolled a 1. However, the Tomb Blades and the Gaze of Death managed to do quite a lot of damage to both units. There's 2 scouts left. They've passed the morale check. That was thanks to Eugene's warriors shooting in. Gaze of Death killed 3 of the Grey Knights, and they are running terrified somewhere in the bottom of that shrine. Meanwhile, across in the centre, the Monolith got a single glance in on James's Rhino at this side. Nothing else was done at all, and despite getting a couple of wounds in on the Dread Knight from all the warriors and everything at this flank, Ian passed every single save. So we haven't retaliated too well yet, but we're not within optimal firing range. So we've got a couple of charges that we're going to be making. The Barge and the Scarabs especially, and the Wraiths. Let's see what we can do in the assault phase. Right, so the Wraiths charged in at the Rhino, and despite 12 attacks at strength 5, only managed to get a single glance on the Rhino, so not too good there. But over in the centre, 4 attacks from the Lord with a War Scythe with Armor Bane, and we got 1 hit on the Vindicator. It is snap firing next turn though. However, those guys even failed their charge against the Razorback. So combat's not too good for the Necrons that turn, but like I said, next turn we should be within optimal firing range. Maybe that guy will draw the Dread Knight in. There's a lot of firepower waiting to meet him. So let's move on to Imperial, turn 2. Right, so Imperial turn 2, James's Storm Talon has come screeching on, staring down at Eugene's Necron Overlord. Meanwhile, at this side, the Rhinos screeched into place to hopefully try and stop the Lich Guard in the place, and the Marines have jumped out, and the, I want to say, strike squad of Ian's are looking to hopefully take on the Wraith. There's a lot of Stormbolter fire there. Hopefully, between the two of them, they should be able to do a little bit. Meanwhile, at this side, the Vindicator has pulled back to allow the Dread Knight in to potentially take out the Catacomb Command Barge. Ian's Terminator's just holding back for the moment, and James's Dreadnought staying where it is. But the scouts there have ran off with the Relic, and the other Rhino rushing in to try and block charge lanes. Meanwhile, the guys have jumped out to potentially start taking out some of the flayed ones on this side. They don't want to be taking a charge from them. The Land Raider, meanwhile, blocking the street. The Terminator's ready to meet whatever comes down this alleyway. However, on this flank, the Dread Knight has pushed forward, and I think Ian's probably going to use both templates to clear my warriors out and then charge into Eugene's. In the psychic phase, both Dread Knights have got Sanctuary off, and Graham and James managed to get off Prescient on the Devastators here. So I think firepower may prove to be reasonably effective in this turn for the Imperial forces. Let's see what they can do to clear this Necron onslaught on Shrine World Borealis. Right, so in the shooting phase, this Dread Knight has managed to clear out a lot of the warriors at this side, a couple of mine and a few of Eugene's, whilst at this flank, las cannons firing left, right and centre straight at the monolith, and we've lost one more hull point. We did manage to ignore the shaken result there. The flayed ones took shots from the tactical marines here, and we lost 2 thanks to bolter fire. In the centre, the command barge took fire from the dreadnought, but unfortunately nothing was done. The las cannon from the Razorback shooting in at the monolith as well. We've lost almost all the scarabs. There's only one left thanks to the Dread Knight at this side using the large blast and the heavy incinerator. Meanwhile, on this flank, casualties have ensued. 2 of the wraiths cut down thanks to mass bolter fire, flamer and incinerator, and fire from the Storm Talon. I should have ran the Decurion. Every reanimation I rolled 4+. So it looks as though the Imperial forces are making a strong advance to meet the lines of the Necrons and hopefully stop them advancing. But the scouts are making off with that objective. We need to get the relic back. Right, so in combats for the Imperials, Ian's Grey Knights charged in here and did nothing to the Wraith. The Wraith managed to get a single rend on one of those guys and they passed their morale. Meanwhile, in the centre, Ironclad Dreadnought charged in, did a single hull point, a glance on the rear armour of the chariot, and the Lord only got a single penetrating hit back on the Dreadnought. I rolled and immobilised. Thanks to being vulnerable, James got me to re-roll it, and I managed to blow off the assault cannon. I'd rather have lost the power fist, but never mind. The only other combats were across the table. Down here, the Dread Knight charged in, and believe it or not, didn't kill a single warrior. Tied combat over there. So that is it for the Imperials' turn. It looks as though the scouts are making off with the relic for the moment. We need to push forward and fast. Right, so the Necron forces are pushing forward. The Lich-Guard Star is going to look to multi-charge the Storm Eagles and their Rhino and potentially take that out. We've got the one Wraith holding up the strike squad. Meanwhile, the Tomb Blades have zipped forward this way to get shots in on the rear armour of the Vindicator and Razorback there. We've got the 2 Scarabs. I managed to breed another one with a Spider, and we managed to get them close up here as well. Hopefully we can chew through these 2 vehicles. We've also got Eugene's Tomb Blades and the Catan pushing forward as well. The Spider just moving forward there to keep within 12 inches to grant reanimation for the Wraith and the Spiders. These guys are locked in combat. The Annihilation Barge is left up as well, again looking to get extra hits on the Razorback and the Vindicator. We've got the Monolith, which is not snap firing, going to drop its lovely pie plate down on these guys. The flayed ones get a 2-inch move through cover. Unfortunately, I was going to try and charge them at the tactical squad here. We'll see if we can get through them. But the 10 Immortals have leapt out, and I'm pretty sure that we can hopefully get rid of the Land Raider or the Rhino, but we need to stop them scouts from moving forward with those guys. The Warriors here are advancing forward with the Ghost Ark as well, and the Death Marks pushing forward. Eugene wants to try and target that Dread Knight there. Meanwhile, at the back, way over in that corner by themselves, we've got another unit of Warriors and a unit of Immortals ready to go in to the Dread Knight to tie it up. So potentially we could do a lot of damage this turn, but let's see what we can do in the shooting phase. Right, so shooting could have been a little bit better, but the Immortals here managed to do 2 glances on the Land Raider, not bad at all. Meanwhile, in the centre, the Particle Whip from the Monolith only killed a single scout, but managed to kill 2 of the Marines. The Marines have now fell back almost to the edge of the board. If James had just rolled an extra inch on that 3 dice, he only rolled a 9 or 10, I think. The scouts, thankfully, went thanks to the Immortals absolutely annihilating them with rapid fire shots. In the centre, despite Gaze of Death and Sky of Fallen Stars and 3 blast templates from the Tomb Blades, Unfortunately, Eugene failed to do anything. He's dice betraying him, rolling ones all day long. The Annihilation Barge here at the back, even shot at the Dread Knight, doing nothing whatsoever. However, the Vindicator, you might see, is gone, thanks to getting 2 glancing hits from the Tomb Blades at the back. And that was pretty much it from shooting. The Scouts here are gone, but Ian's Purifiers are still there. The Warriors and the Ghost Ark managed to get a single glance in James' Storm Talon. He elected not to jink, so he's still firing a full ballistic skill. So that was it for shooting, and I actually realised I've got a Stalker in reserve that I totally forgot about. So yeah, let's move on to combats. We've got this one to work out, we've got the Scarabs charging in, and we've got this one here as well. Right, so not a bad round of combats. These guys multi-charged in and managed to wreck not only the Rhino, but also kill the Marines with the help of that Wraith there as well. Scarabs at this side charged in and managed to do a single glancing hit on the Razorback, and of course James's Dreadnought smashed apart the Chariot there. So not good at all. In the centre, those guys 4-inch charge. Yep, and we even lost 2 to Overwatch with bolter fire. The Destroyer Lord made it in, it issued a challenge, and unfortunately it was only able to do a single wound to the Chaplain. Despite Mastercraft and Preferred Enemy, I actually only got 1 hit. So not good at all. Meanwhile, the Dread Knight, tied up in combat at the back there, only killed a single warrior. So yeah, Ian's going to have to kill them in his turn, which means that I can then charge my warriors in to tie up the turn after. So yeah, not too shabby round of combat. We are making advances, but we need to get this relic, and we need to stop the Imperial forces from keeping hold of it. Right, so movement phase for the Marines. These guys have backed up and looking to get some shots in on the Lich Guard unit, maybe take 1 or 2 of them out. The Storm Talon, meanwhile, has hurtled forward. Is James going to take out some of the warriors, or is he going to go for the Ghost Ark? The Dread Knight is pushing forward, looking to get rid of the Annihilation Barge, we reckon. Ian managed to get Sanctuary off on that. The Dreadnought here has moved forward to heavy flame these guys. Luckily, they're still going to get their armour saves, though. The Paladins pushing forward. We've got Hammer Hand and Force. And there's a Nightbringer just there. So I think Eugene might end up losing that. The Marines here on this side have managed to move back forwards, looking to hopefully grab the relic. And finally, this side, the Land Raider has turned, moved it 6 inches up. The Terminators have leapt out, looking to charge probably Eugene's Immortals. Hopefully he can take a couple of them out in Overwatch if the Terminators make it that far. So not too bad. This Dread Knight even got Sanctuary off as well. It's back and forth the whole time, back and forth. So let's move on to shooting. Right, so shooting phase for the sides of the Imperials. The Tactical Marines failed to do anything to the Lich Guard unit. The Laspred had a pop at that Wraith to try and take it out. Man of the match so far, or this turn, is probably the Storm Talon doing 2 penetrating hits to the Ghost Ark, causing it to lose its Quantum Shield, and Eugene obviously passing Living Metal thanks to running a Decurion. The Strike Squad here managed to inflict a couple of wounds on the Tomb Blades, but we managed to totally ignore that altogether. And the Immortals have been slew a little bit thanks to the Heavy Flamer on the Dreadnought and a Plasma Pistol shot from the Assault Marines there. The Dread Knight failed to do anything to the Annihilation Barge, and despite these guys shooting in down here, only a single wound was done to the Catan from the side cannon guys up there. Meanwhile, across this side, the Monolith has lost another hull point thanks to the las cannons up here, and Eugene has lost a few Immortals thanks to the Heavy Flamer and the Storm Bolters and the las cannon and Heavy Bolter on the Land Raider. So the Marines constantly pushing back, but it looks as though we've now got a few assaults to make. This game is brutal. It's back and forth, absolute brutality. But let's see what happens in the assault phase. See who comes out on top. Right, so combat's down here. Ian failed again to do any damage. The Terminators here failed to make their charge, and Eugene unfortunately didn't do any damage in Overwatch. In the centre, the Destroyer Lord managed to cut down the Chaplain and one of the Marine. The Power Fist guy failed to do anything to the Necron Lord. The Dreadnought charged in, killed 3 of the warriors. We managed to do a single glance on Overwatch, but then he overran the rest of the Immortals, so not good. Down here, I've just noticed, Eugene, what happened?
Everything died because I can't roll dice.
Yeah, so there's no Catan left, and there's no Tomb Blades left. Ian managed to get a multi-charge in, and this guy here managed to cut down the Annihilation Barge as well. So yeah, it seems the Necron forces are being pushed back quite dramatically. But let's move on to Necrons turn 3. Let's see if we can bring anything back. Right, so the Tomb Blades left up behind the Razorback. Hopefully we can take that out. But we've also got Scarabs there as well. The Spider got a 6-inch move through cover. She's in the ruins and bred an extra Scarab base. Not bad considering I was down to 1 at one point there. The Lich Guard, of course, are going to be taking out the Marines here. Meanwhile, at this side, these warriors have all marched forward and they're within 6 inches of the Stalker that came on from reserve, which means Ballistic Skill 5 against these guys here. Eugene wants some revenge. Hopefully he can force enough ones on Ian. Me Flayed Ones finally got a decent move through cover, and I'm going to charge in here to hopefully help the Destroyer Lord out, and then the Destroyer Lord can maybe, potentially, take out the Dreadnought. It's on 1 hull point. We'll have to see if we can survive that. Meanwhile, down this side, my warriors are going to shoot in at the Land Raider, see if we can take it out, and I think Eugene's going to rapid fire at the Terminators and then potentially charge and tie them up, as that heavy flamer is going to be awful. Right, so shooting for the Necrons has been abysmal. Despite this guy granting Ballistic Skill 5 to these, Eugene rapid fired everything into the Terminator Paladins and nothing. Not a thing. This guy rapid fired into the Storm Talon and also the Dread Knight. Again, nothing. Ballistic Skill 5 death marks at the Paladins. Nothing. These guys rapid firing at him. 1 wound. That was even with fire from the Ghost Ark. And then these guys here rapid fired into the Terminator and 1 Terminator died. So despite Eugene firing, we counted up 127 shots. He's done 2 wounds. Yeah, so yeah, bad rolling for Eugene, unfortunately. Meanwhile, my 4 warriors managed to get 2 glances on the Land Raider, but James passed 1 of the 5 up covers thanks to the Terminators and those guys being in the way. The only other thing that was done, we managed to get 1 hull point on the rear armour of the Razorback there, and we also managed to kill 1 of these with the particle whip on the monolith. These guys do need a morale check though, and then we've got a couple of charges to make. So the combat phase for Necrons proven a lot better than what the shooting phase was. Of course, these guys walked through the Marines. The Wraith up here charged in and got a rend and 2 wounds on Ian's Purifiers. So we managed to kill them. Thanks, Ian. I will get them right eventually. The 3 Scarab bases charged in and did the single hull point damage to the Razorback that we needed to do. In the centre, the Destroyer Lord actually took a wound from the Tactical Marines before he cut them down, so he's on 1 wound. I haven't passed a single 3-up save with him yet. The Flayed Ones didn't even get to swing. He didn't get a wound back from It Will Not Die, and neither did the Monolith. Meanwhile, over this side, 1 Immortal was slain and 1 Terminator cut down as well. And again, over there, drawn combat yet again. So the Necrons are advancing, they are making their way across the battlefield. The relic is still up for grabs for the moment. Right, so the strike squad have come forward looking to take out these 2 Tomb Blades, and James has moved his tactical squad around as well to get shots in on them in the sighting phase. These guys unfortunately didn't get anything off, but Ian's Terminators are running down the hill to meet the Necron force that's coming up through the streets. Meanwhile, the Dread Knight is looking to smash apart the Ghost Ark on that flank. Ian's other Terminators have finally arrived. They've got hammer hand off, and yeah, I think that's big enough detriment to avoid me from charging them, but that's fine because I'm not going to be going for them. The Overlord is going to be going for the Land Raider if he survives, and the Flayed Ones will of course be going to grab the relic. So that was pretty much it. Not a lot of movement done, not too much psychic, but Is the tide starting to turn in favour of the Necrons? We shall have to find out. Right, so the Stormbolters on these Grey Knights, killing a few of the warriors at the front there, but not running away. Meanwhile, the Ghost Ark that was left on 2 hull points has been shredded apart by the Dread Knight. These guys took fire from the Laspred, but unfortunately not a single wound was done at all. Across here, the Stormbolter fire and the Incinerator managed to take out one of the Tomb Blades, and he's passed his morale. They even took fire from the tactical squad here as well. However, the Storm Talon made mincemeat of the flayed ones that were in the centre. Me, out of 6 reanimations, not passing a single reanimation at all. The Devastators, as well as the Land Raider, shot all of the las cannons with support from the Dreadnought, and the Monolith still stands on 1 hull point. However, that Dreadnought there is going to be charging in. So we've got a couple of combats to resolve. We've got the Dread Knight and the Terminators at this side. We've got this guy charging in, and we're going to have them guys charging down the hill to meet the firepower of the Necrons. Right, so combats are ongoing. This guy is still tied up by Eugene's Necrons. He only managed to lose one of them. Across in the centre, the Dreadnought charged in, and he got 2 glances with that power fist onto the armour of the Monolith, so the Monolith is cut down. Meanwhile, that happened. Unfortunately, Ian did 9 wounds and killed 9 of the warriors. Eugene failed his morale check and unfortunately just ran off the board. So that's not too good at all. Ian still needs to consolidate those, but as expected, those guys are even cut through that lonely Tomb Blade over there. So things aren't looking good for the Necrons. We've got very little left, but hopefully we can do some damage. Oh goody. Right, so Necron moving phase. Eugene has moved the Lich Guard up here. Apparently he now doesn't care about objectives. He just wants off the board on this side. Miss Spetre has moved up another 6 inches into cover here, and she spread another base. We've got the Lone Wraith, and we've got 4 Scarabs. Hopefully we can take out this squad. Yeah, meanwhile, the only other thing is these guys here, and now we're going to hopefully take out this Land Raider. Eugene's warriors are pushing forward. We've got 1 warrior back. I think he's going to rapid fire potentially into these Terminators, see what he can do, and then we've got the death marks on the top. Unfortunately, not a lot left for us. Right, so massively fast turn there for shooting for the Necrons. These 4 warriors managed to get 2 glances on the Land Raider and managed to wreck it. And as you can see, Ian's Terminators are gone. Eugene finally doing a lot of damage with these warriors here, doing 3 wounds, and then the death marks, despite only 6 of them being within range, Eugene got 4 rends and a wound. Unfortunately, Ian failed his in-runs on the last couple of guys. Across here, the Heat Ray, 1 wound, and Ian passed his in-run. So that was pointless. And the Storm Talon is gone. James again elected not to jink. He wanted to try and keep the full ballistic skill, but with the flare array on that side, we managed to get 2 glances on the Storm Talon. So the Storm Talon has been cut down. Charges. These guys are going to go in and take out Ian's strike squad, and Eugene's going to kill stuff. Yeah. Right, so in combat, of course, the Overlord sliced through the armour of the Predator. The explosion going so far that it actually killed one of the Lich Guard. While across here, the Wraith made it into combat, and despite all the attacks from the Wraiths and the Scarabs, not a single Marine was cut down. Not great for the Necrons. Meanwhile, over this side, the Terminators managed to kill 2 more of the Immortals, and they have ran. And yet again, Eugene is managing to hold up the Dread Knight on this flank. So the Necrons are pushing back slightly, but we're going to call it at the end of turn 5, so we've got 1 more turn to go to try and get a couple of objectives and see whether or not we can get that relic back. I don't think we're going to be able to make it that far though. So let's move into turn 5. Right, so Imperial turn 5, and these guys are going for the Stalker. Ian managed to get hammer hand off in the sight phase. Meanwhile, the Dread Knight and the Dreadnought are probably looking to take out a lot of the warriors at this side. Back here, Ian got force and hammer hand off on these guys, so I think I'll probably say goodbye to the Wraith and the Scarabs. never mind. In the psychic phase, James managed to get off prescience on the Devastators, so there's going to be some shots coming in there. Meanwhile, the Dreadnought and the Terminators are looking to probably take out both of these units here. So it's looking very, very grim for the Necrons. Let's see what the Imperial forces do in the shooting phase. Right, so shooting phase, the Dreadnought here managed to kill one of my warriors with a las cannon, and the heavy flame and stormbolters from the Terminators killed one of Eugene's Immortals, both of them passing the morale check. However, that happened. The heavy incinerator and the heavy side cannon using the large blast from the Dread Knight just there, and the heavy flamer that this Dreadnought still has left as well. The Ghost Arc even took 2 glances, one from the heavy side cannon and the Prescient Stub Devastators here. One of the las cannons went through. So yeah, not too shabby round of shooting at all for forces of Imperium. We've got charges to make now, and I think it's not going to go well for either of us. Right, so combats are definitely on the side of the Imperial forces today. The Terminators cut through the last 3 Immortals. They managed to rally before they were charged, and of course Ian's Dread Knight in the final turn of the game made it out of combat. So yeah, Dreadnought here charged. I managed to kill one of the warriors, and unfortunately for us, they held their morale. Not good. Ian's Dread Knight didn't make it into combat. Meanwhile, down that side, Hammerhand plus Halberds equals bye-bye Stalker. However, for some reason, this combat was all tied up. The Wraith didn't kill any of the other guys, and despite Ian having Force and Hammerhand on, didn't kill any of us. The Scarabs, despite 20 attacks, only hit 4 times, 2 wounds, and Ian passed his save. So that's not what we wanted at all. We've got a couple of things to do for Necrons, but I think it's safe to say that the Imperial forces have held Shrine World Borealis today. Right, so the entire of Necrons turn 5. These guys rapid fired at the Terminators and did nothing. Deathmark shot at the Dread Knight and did nothing. And down here, the Spider charged in, bred another Wraith, and Ian unfortunately insta-killed the Spider. The Wraith failed to do anything, and then the Scarabs missed with 3 attacks out of 20. Got 6 wounds, and Ian failed 4 armor saves, then failed his morale check despite only being at -1 for insta-killing the Spider, and ran off the board. So that is a small victory for us on the last turn of the game. Meanwhile, the Oculid Dynasty has used the Cardanesh Dynasty as their meat shield, and Orican has ordered his Lich Guard and the Overlord onward to beyond to whatever Orican seems to be seeking. So that is it for today's game. It is definitely a victory for the forces of the Imperium. The Grey Knights control this objective, the Death Spectres hold the relic, and yeah, there has been at least one Slay the Warlord for the Imperial forces as well, the Destroyer Lord being cut down. So it is definitely a victory for the Imperial forces. I hope you've enjoyed today's game. It's been very fast paced. It's been absolutely brutal, and I thought I was being nice by not bringing a Dakuri in. Well, I don't think it paid off. However, it's been a fantastic game. It's been a brilliant weekend, and we've had a few great games. Please check out the rest of the games that have been filmed this weekend. Thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time.